Greetings, salutations, howdy. Welcome back to the House of Hammer. Luckily for you, I've just emptied the bins, run the hoover round and put an incense stick on. So we're just about ready to welcome you guests. Kev's in the bath with his rubber duck. At least I think that's what he said. And Smokey is down in the cellar reading aloud from the Necronomicon. So for the time being, it's just you and me. I've not been feeling myself recently, but whilst researching the news stories of yesteryear for one of our patron-only bonus features, I happened across this health advice from a 1956 advertisement in the Daily Mail. Are you feeling run down, nervy, lacking in energy? Have you lost your appetite? Are you simply not as vigorous as you ought to be? In that case, suspect... what? I'll give you a few seconds to have a guess. What should you be suspecting? Now remember, this is 1956, so the crushing realities of 21st century living are not a valid answer. What do you think might be causing these problems? It's time to suspect tired blood. That's right, the problem here is tired blood? Tired blood is blood that's impoverished because it's not being renewed as it should be. Your blood is driven round your body by your heart thousands of times every 24 hours. It has to nourish and energise every organ, every nerve, every muscle, every tissue cell, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, night and day, for as long as you live. Is it me, or is there something of an accusatory tone there? Look at you selfish get, wearing out your blood. Give it a rest. But in fact, the advertisement goes on to explain that we can do better than giving our blood a rest. We can give it vitamized iron geloids. It will revive your tired blood and give you new strength and energy fast. Iron geloids make good the mineral and vitamin deficiencies which cause anemia, debility, lowered vitality, neurasthenia, whatever that is. You don't want it though. Loss of appetite, paleness, skin blemishes, susceptibility to colds and common ills, scurvy, leprosy, lack of personality, regrow severed limbs, discover spiritual fulfillment, befriend a squirrel, forge a new life under the sea. But we move on. And what do we have in store for you today? Well, we're off to the clink, the cooler, the slammer, the big house. We're going up the river, and various other assorted synonyms, because the subject of this episode is Hammer's 1956 prison drama, Women Without Men, aka Blonde Bait. And for once, that aka in the middle is very significant. It was directed by Elmore Williams, whose other works include The Tall Texan and the tremendously titled Hell Ship Mutiny. He also worked as a producer and editor and won an Academy Award for his editing work on High Noon in 1952. At the time of his death in 2015, he was the oldest living Oscar winner. Well, until he died and wasn't living anymore, then he wasn't. I suppose I should really read, until seconds before his death he was alive and was the oldest Oscar winner until he stopped living. Not quite as succinct, but more accurate. Anyway, where were we? Women Without Men, that's right, stars Beverly Michaels as Angela Booth in what would be her 14th and final film. Happily, this is not the precursor, just for once, to a tale about her untimely death. She went on to live until 2007. She simply seems to have retired from acting shortly after her second marriage to writer and producer Russell Rouse. Women Without Men also stars pod favourites Paul Carpenter and Sheila Burrell, as well as Jim Davis, Richard Travis and Paul Kavanagh. Well, it kind of stars them, but again, we'll get to that in a bit. One thing is for certain, it definitely stars Thora Hird, who we last saw as Rosie, the drunken witness to a wardrobe-sized space wibbly that she mistakes for a gin goblin in the Quatermass experiment. Now, Thora Hird is, or indeed was, something of a national treasure here in Britain. She was born in 1911, and over the course of her career, one which started when she was only 8 weeks old, having been carried onto stage as a baby in her mother's arms in a play directed by her father, she went on to star in over 500 plays and over 100 films before her death, aged 91, in 2003. Now, how you remember Thora Hird largely depends on your age. For me, she'll always be the woman from the Churchill stairlifts adverts, and indeed her very name became synonymous with mobility aids for the elderly. Which is a touch harsh considering the career she'd had before she took the money from the big stairlift lads and declared, "Churchills are the only stairlift company I trust and I recommend them to you." Yeah, in your face, Stana stairlifts. Also, as an aside from this aside, Did you know that stair lifts, as we know them, were invented exactly 100 years ago in 1923 by a chap called C.C. Crispin, an engineer from Pennsylvania, who created a way to enable an ailing friend to travel from floor to floor? A self-taught engineer, he built a seat that could climb stairs, the first prototype of the inclining chair, which he called the Inclinator. But back to Thora Hird. At 17, she became a cashier at the Lancaster and District Co-op, which she regarded as her drama school. Later in her career, she would say, "I used to look at some of the customers and think, if I ever take up acting seriously, I'll play her. I've played nearly all of them now. People say to me, 'Ooh, that woman was so lifelike.' I say, 'She is. She lives in Morecambe.'" Thora's big break was engineered by another Lancastrian, George Formby, who was already a big star when he saw her in a play called As You Are. He said to me, you were good, and I want the studios to see you." Soon afterwards, she was given a £5 note to cover her fare to London, and she arrived at Ealing Studios on the day war broke out. "I got there just as the alert went, and even the man on the gate ran for it, so I followed everyone into a shelter and I sat next to a woman from the restaurant who was shelling peas. All I could think was that I'd be late for my appointment. I didn't realise that everyone from the studio would be down there." She starred in dozens of post-war movies and racked up a lot of TV credits too, both as an actor and as herself. A devoted Christian, she fronted the TV programme Praise Be for 17 years. Aside from being a spin-off from the longer-running series Songs of Praise, I can't seem to find out a great deal about the programme, other than it had accompanying yearbooks, notebooks, Christmas books and books of prayers, all featuring Thora Hird on the front. Another long-standing role was in the painfully never-ending Sunday sitcom Last of the Summer Wine, where she played Edie for a total of 152 episodes. But she gave her most acclaimed performances in several Talking Heads solo television plays written especially for her by close friend Alan Bennett. In particular, her performance as Doris, an elderly woman who has a fall and finds herself contemplating her remaining days in the episode A Cream Cracker Under the Settee, was roundly praised and won her a BAFTA award. Thora was married to her husband James Scott for 57 years before his death in 1994. They had a daughter, Jeanette Scott, who herself became an actress. In her later years, Hird showed extraordinary courage in the face of crippling osteoarthritis. She had operations to replace both her hips twice over, and in 1992 underwent heart bypass surgery. After more heart surgery in 2000, she was fitted with a pacemaker. Despite these health battles and reliance on a wheelchair in her final years, she continued acting right up until her death. Alan Yentob, the BBC's drama director, said, "Thora Hird was a national treasure. She was universally admired and adored by the British public, and rightly so. She really is irreplaceable." Thora's modesty as an actor was perhaps best summed up by something she said following a screening of one of her Alan Bennett Talking Heads performances. Having been reduced to tears when re-watching her own performance, she remarked, "Fancy crying at yourself pretending." Now, at this point, I'd usually move on to tell you what this film is actually about, but for this episode it's not as straightforward as all that. Because what we have here is not one film, it's two. We have Women Without Men, and after some considerable editing, we also have Blonde Bait. And luckily, I have Kevin Moore to take you through some of the differences.
If you've listened to any of our other feature episodes, you'll know that at this point in the proceedings, we'd normally give you a quick synopsis, so that you have some idea of what we're talking about. In the case of Women Without Men, it's a bit trickier. With it being chopped and changed about so much that it can justify being called Blonde Bait as well, I thought I'd walk you through the differences. The most startling and pronounced difference is the opening of the film. Women Without Men sets the scene straight away with some grim shots of prison life before introducing Angie Booth in her cell with only her inner monologue to keep her company.
Like most women in prison, I'm here because of a man. In my business, show business, I'd met a lot of them. In Chicago, New York, London, I'd covered a lot of territory. And I'd always managed to take my heart with me. Until I met Nick.
We're introduced to Angie's one true love, Nick Randall, played here by Paul Carpenter. Blonde Bait has a different Nick altogether, played by Jim Davis. You'll hear more about him later. The British Nick, or the nice Nick, has to leave, and the couple agree to meet at the Ox Head on New Year's Eve to start a new life. He then somehow continues to have a scene without Angie, despite it being her flashback, but then who's going to notice? Blonde Bait decides to throw all that out in favour of some stock footage of a quick aeroplane trip, and then Kent Foster relating a story to his friend Mark in an office that Mark never leaves for the entire film. Kent has just returned from London where Angie kept her date. He then continues to tell the whole tale in flashback, starting with a new scene where our new Nick, or Nasty Nick, played by Jim Davis, drops into the dressing room of a very different looking Angie.
I just popped in to say goodbye.
Goodbye. You haven't even said hello yet.
I'm sorry, honey. It'll have to be that way for now. You'll just have to trust me. I'm almost sure that this will be the last time.
How long is this time?
3 months.
3 months. Then I won't see you till...
New Year's Eve. But from then on, you'll have a hard time getting rid of me.
Both films then converge at the same place, with the same person, Julian, the rotter of an agent, in his flat. Julian is nothing more than an evil pimp without the wardrobe, and is not about to let Angie get married and leave her career as a showgirl. After he smacks her around the face, Angie fights back with a hand mirror, and Julian isn't seen again. After Julian's flat, there's an additional cut back to Kent in the office, where we find out that Julian's alive, but badly scarred, and out for revenge in court.
Julian Lord was a powerful man. Very few persons knew how powerful, least of all Angela Booth. In the States, Angela's plea of self-defense would probably have meant at the most a suspended sentence or probation. But Julian Lord pressed charges to the hilt and got her a 6-month sentence.
And that's where we came into the case, huh?
Right. When Angela went to jail, it killed any chance that she might lead us to Nick Randall. In the hope that we might manage to salvage something out of the situation, I grabbed the first available plane to London.
Kent then travels by stock footage plane to another office, where he sets up a plan with Inspector Hedges to have Angie escape prison, for reasons best left unquestioned. Kent needed to get Nasty Nick. In Blonde Bait, Nick is part of a spy ring, a collaborator and a murderer. Both films then meet back up at the prison. By this time, Blonde Bait has been two blokes talking in an office for at least 8 minutes, while Women Without Men has covered all this ground in just over 7. To catch up with its English counterpart, the US version makes the decision to cut many of the prison scenes for timing. Oddly, there's a shuffling of the order in which the food's delivered to the cells. Then there's a lot of character work that's sadly lost, including the introduction of Thora Heard's Gran as a driving force, a scene where Paul Carpenter's in deep-sea diving gear. The character of Grumpy Pierre is completely lost, and then the most painful of cuts has to be where Sheila Burrell's performance as Bates, who clearly isn't taking to prison life well, is also deleted. During all this, in Blonde Bait, there's another flashback that makes no sense when short-haired Angie meets up with Inspector Hedges in his office. Bearing in mind that the whole of this version is a flashback of Kent Foster's, he really needs to be in every scene for it to make any kind of sense. Spoilers, he isn't. Oh well, the plan is taking shape to have a breakout and lead the State Department to slippery Nick Randall, at least. And then it's back to prison. A plan's hatched to use the prison's Christmas concert as a means and moment to escape. Gran, Angie and Marguerite, along with her baby, do somehow manage to pull it off, eventually using a barge before splitting and agreeing to meet up at a boarding house in London. Before I get too far ahead, another scene during the concert is lost in the US version, where Angie has a time to show off her singing talents that made her the West End sensation she is. As a side note, she sings Long Ago Guy, a song written for this by Douglas Gamley, who would go on to work with Hammer in a couple of small ways before moving on to scoring most of the pictures for Amicus films. During the escape, and the climactic firework-filled car chase, there are several incongruous cuts back to Kent Foster and Inspector Hedges chatting in the office to maintain the illusion that everything is going according to their plan, and that Gran was actually put in the prison to make sure that their plan was successful. From here on in, other than the office scenes, there are very few differences between Women Without Men and Blonde Bait, until the very last scene where Angie makes it to the Ox Head in time, only to find it closed and no sign of Nice Nick. She's visibly heartbroken. She's about to hand herself in to the police by phone when Paul Carpenter's Nice Nick screams to a halt in his car. They both then squeeze back into the telephone box for a cuddle. And that's the end of Women Without Men. In Blonde Bait, Jim Davis's Nasty Nick is already there and hiding behind a bush until he knows the coast's clear before surprising her. It doesn't pay off for him though, because Foster and a policeman are also hiding behind another bush. What follows is what I can only loosely term a gunfight where Nasty Nick is killed. Then it's back to the State Department office where we find out that Angie's going to sing at the command performance. We don't hear her sing there either. The end. Hopefully I've managed to navigate you through the differences without giving you too much of a headache. It might become clearer when we discuss the films later on. Might.
So, we kind of have two films to discuss. Sort of. Well, let's try and make sense of this in the roundtable discussion, where I'm joined by Kev and Smokey.
Right, chaps. So it's great news, isn't it? We've got a Hammer release that's a Christmas movie in April and June. Do you think Carreras should have simply just pulled the plug on this?
I think there's enough in this to merit its release in both versions, in honesty. I mean, one version is a better film than the other version, but you know, as we'll get to as we talk about this, there are elements in both that I like, and I don't think either of them is what I would class as a disaster. Yeah, it's a bit bizarre that it's a Christmas. The Christmas bit of it is quite significant, and the film was obviously not released any time near Christmas, but not distractingly so. It's not like it's the Grinch or White Christmas or something. But it's to answer the original question, I'm pleased that they didn't can it. I think I've seen a lot worse than both versions of this.
We've seen a hell of a lot worse from Hammer than both versions of this. I mean, logistically, you can look at it from both sides of the coin. You can look at it and sort of say, well, look, they've had these wonderful successes with Quatermass and Next to the Unknown, and so why go back to a crime drama that's been their bread and butter, but ultimately not massively successful? I'm not pushing it and saying it's a great film, but it's a film. It's a good film. As cast go, it's quite a substantial one. And so that's a massive undertaking that a studio has an obligation. You've got to pay them. This isn't Batwoman. So you are going to need to let this thing out. And here, look, it's going to cost them very little to make this in the first place. So even if it just has a weak run, you're probably going to make your money back. And because now the Hammer name carries a heavier cachet than it ever has before in 1956. So I don't think he should have pulled the plug at all. I think they should have been a little more strict on the Americans on what they cut and what they changed. But then that's probably out of their hands, isn't it? So, I'm glad it exists.
Smokey, thinking about it, I wonder if this is something to do with why this was the last film with Lippert Pictures, because as far as Lippert Pictures is concerned, after this, they do a film called Massacre with Dane Clark, and then that's the last Lippert picture as well. So it's a matter of weeks.
Oh, so this was the last Hammer film for Lippert, but he did another Lippert film after this without Hammer.
He did another Lippert film in the States, and then it was dissolved and it became a subsidiary of 20th Century Fox.
Went back to Dane Clark, did he? Well, I mean...
yeah, why not?
Well, fair dues. I mean, the last one worked really well. But, I mean, but then that would make sense why Beverly Michaels is in this, then the last Hammer American import, I suppose.
Yeah. Apart from, obviously, Brian Donlevy, who they've basically got... Anyway,
he was in the first one. You may as well bring him back.
Yeah, that's it. You've started something now you can't finish. Oh my God, it's like Magnus Magnusson in a film studio.
There's one for the kids.
Hey,
am I right in thinking that basically Hammer didn't need Lippert though after Quatermass because the ground had moved under everyone's feet a little bit?
No, that were X the Unknown.
Very good. But the job that effectively Lippert had done in providing them with a wider audience, they'd kind of managed to succeed in doing themselves because of people were all of a sudden were very interested in Hammer because of Quatermass.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense. But what about you, Kev? You didn't tell us what you thought. Do you think Carrera should have pulled a plug?
Honestly, yes, because...
You hate Christmas.
Because you're contrary.
Yeah. No, yes, I hate Christmas. No, I feel like it's one of those where it would have worked perfectly if they'd have released it when they filmed it. The problem was it got stuck in the works, and you got, by the time this is coming out, you've already got Quatermass X the Unknown and Quatermass 2 in the works, and suddenly Hammer is a completely different studio, and this is like your weird uncle turning up at a birthday party and you're like, oh, I don't want to see him again. And that's what this feels like to me. It's too much of a throwback to where we were.
Now you mention that, I mean, you look at the films we've done and obviously the order in which they came out. We wouldn't even be talking about this if this came out in between Murder by Proxy and The Glass Cage.
Exactly, yeah.
It would fit.
Yeah, it would.
See, I think this film feels a bit different to anything we've seen before. You know, I think that there is a different feel. I'm not saying that the fact that they've changed, you know, sort of overnight as a company as they did, has had an effect in that way. But I think that the influences that have ended up producing this have maybe been something slightly different. As it isn't a straight noir. Neither version of it is a straight noir film.
No,
the American version of it sort of almost, it adds a third dimension to the film, yet in the same way makes it simpler. Whereas the British version is much more kind of a prison drama, a women's prison drama, which, you know, other than Yield to the Night, which is of a similar vintage, I'm not sure there would have been many films about that particular subject matter portraying anything like the realities of the inside of a women's prison, which this film does reasonably well.
In the 50s,
Yeah, and certainly not in Britain.
Yeah.
I think it is a slightly different beast to what we've seen. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disagreeing that if it had sat between two noirs, I may not have had the same reasonably strong opinion about it, but I wasn't sitting thinking, oh, I've seen all this before with this.
No.
I was sitting thinking this is something slightly different.
Just want to take you back a little bit to, you know, a couple of years ago when we first started doing this, and, you know, we're talking about how impressed we were with Hammer as a production company, and we said it a lot. I think it was even on our bingo card, which was the spunky female character, the lead.
Yeah.
And then you look back to sort of, I don't know, the last dozen films or so, maybe even more that we've reviewed. There's been none of that. It's all been more or less the damsel in distress, or as Ben pointed out in the last film, there weren't any, apart from someone who just wanted to knob a doctor, and then that
scream.
Was it. But legitimately though, this was good to see, and it's not just one. There's three who are together, all pretty much the second half of the film. It's three for, you know, really headstrong, clever, smart, intrepid women succeeding. That's good. We're back to it. Great.
No, absolutely. And what really interests me about the two cuts of this film is how the tone and your sympathies shift accordingly with how the films are edited. But in neither version does it take away from what you say about the women being strong and watching their journey being an interesting thing to sit through.
I agree with that. However, the American version skews more to especially with the very end of the American version of the woman being rescued by a gun-toting guy who gets put down, and then there's a cop, and it's like, that isn't in the British version at all.
That really annoys me about the American version, because the American version removes all agency from all the women protagonists.
Yep.
They're basically toys in a larger game.
That's true.
Even Gran ends up being in a really bad edit. She's running past a phone box.
Yeah.
She's not actually running to a phone box. She's running past a phone box, but the edit just before she's actually going to go past the phone box.
Yeah.
So you're led to believe that she's actually calling the guys at the agency to fill them in on what the plan is, because she's their stool pigeon.
It's quite a clever edit, though, to be fair.
It is a very clever edit. I'll give it props. You know, they've tried to make a story out of a story that wasn't there, which reminds me a lot of what Ed Wood used to do.
Yeah.
But then they've made this whole thing so that Gran is a plant, which makes absolutely no sense when you start thinking about the practicalities of it. Yeah. A woman that's been in a prison for years, just so that she can be there to meet this other woman that's going to be arrested years later because she's a gangster's mole. Well, she's not a gangster's mole. She's a mole, a kind of a gangster's mole, because she's like with this Nazi spy.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know he's a Nazi spy. Yeah. It's insane. It really is. You start thinking about the logistics of it. I love thinking about the logistics of it. You know that.
Is there a business plan?
Absolutely. They haven't got one.
Yes, they have.
They do. It's just...
It's very much pulls the strings. But yeah, it's annoying because they're not three women out on the lam. They're three women out because two women have a mission that they don't even know they're part of, which is very frustrating.
Actually, that's a very good point, because Marguerite's journey is the same in both, in that she just doesn't want her baby to grow up inside a prison, which is fair dues. You know, I don't blame her. So,
what happens to Marguerite? Just out of interest.
She gives herself up. To delay the police.
She meets the family who randomly speak Spanish in London.
Spanish Catholics. Can't move for them.
And then to delay them, she walks herself up to the old bill, doesn't she, to slow them down.
Mm-hmm. Are you fine with that character 180, though? Because she's actually wanted to get out and make a life for an 8-year-old infant, because there's no way that he's an infant.
Yeah, he's huge, isn't he, by the end?
He's like,
he's like X the Unknown.
He's bigger than Thora Heard.
But I think that her motivation is to get him to safety, and once that's done, she accepts her fate, as she needs to go back to prison and serve her sentence. I think what is really interesting is you never really, apart from the bigamist, you don't really know what most of the women are in there for, and it isn't important. And I think that's really, really cleverly done, because we don't know what the Spaniard is in there for. We don't know what a Gran is in there for. And most of the women that we meet, it's either mentioned in passing or we just don't know. And I think that adds
Did someone mention forgery about Gran? There was a line in there that she'd been doing something with dodgy money. I didn't
catch it.
It was like a very throwaway line. But maybe one of the guards had uttered it or something. I don't know. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I just seem to remember hearing that.
I like to think that we actually see Sheila Burrell in the UK version a lot. She's in the prison yard. Mm-hmm. She has a good scene in that, and then she has her own scene where she tears apart her cell because she's been thrown in there for being obstinate. And I want to think that this is actually Honor from the Rossiter case, and she's doing her time. We never actually hear her name other than Bates, and we never hear Honor's name other than Honor. We never hear her surname, so I reckon it's Honor Bates, and she's in there doing her time. That's where I want to think of anyway.
In the Hammer cinematic universe.
Absolutely. We're creating one.
The HCU. No, I do like that. And it was nice to see her again as well. But I don't think it can be understated how vastly improved the UK version is for just having Paul Carpenter in it.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Right, but here, no, this is a question. Is it right? And again, I may have missed this, but I don't think I have. Okay, the film in both cases, the film hinges on the fact that she has a mysterious boyfriend who disappears for 3 months at a time, and she doesn't know where he goes. Now, in the American cut, he's a Nazi sympathising horrible spy. Yeah, and who does other things that aren't very nice as well. But in the British version, she just doesn't know where he goes. And we see him later, and he's on a boat, diving. Yep. What's he doing? And why can't they just tell the audience what he's doing?
Don't know.
I figured it out.
All right, he's Captain Birdseye.
He's close. He's looking for treasure that is slightly circumspect.
Oh, so we're back to the Jack of Diamonds again.
Yes, basically. Oh, it's all HCU. Honestly. Oh, my word. It's been all set up.
I don't want to force the point, Kev, but how do you know?
I listened.
And what did he say?
I'm not going to quote it now. You go back and watch it.
You don't know. This defense is flimsy. It's written on the thinnest papyrus.
Go back to the last episode. We don't have time for your nonsense.
Yes.
You've filled in the blanks. It's like a magician's trick. You've seen something that wasn't there, Kevin.
No, they're on about...
It's like Thora Hurd's phone box.
They were on about the stash. Oh, don't start me on the phone box.
I've got to admit, though, when I watched the British version today, and it suddenly cuts to Paul Carpenter and his mate on a boat, and they've got their diving suits on, they're putting the diving bells on, I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he there?
He's going to die, clearly.
So I was with you, Ben. I was with you. Maybe this was an early version of really rich people going to look for the Titanic.
That's what honestly, that's what they were doing. It doesn't. Despite what Kev might like to say when he's watching this on his daybed, they did not say what they were doing. They just said something had drifted into something. Yeah. It's 40,000 fathoms down. Off you go. They didn't say whether it was Nazi gold, the Titanic, whether it was anything.
Yeah. They did. Early in the conversation, they talk about their boss and say that they're looking for the stash.
This is not strengthening your case.
No, it's not. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm going to have to agree with Ben on this one. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Well, fine. But let's face it. Either way, he's not going to be back for 3 months.
It doesn't matter, does it? Really,
it doesn't matter. As I said, going back to the thing, there's so much in both versions that doesn't really matter at all. But I'm surely we can all agree that the American agent plotline in the American film is bizarre, and I mean, don't get me wrong, they kind of make it work.
Right, well, before we go any further then, that leads me into a question that I've got for both of you, and I've got an answer for this as well, so that I don't have to do a Ben and say I'm not answering that nonsense. What makes them such different films for you? Because they are, in fact, we should say straight out, we are talking about Blonde Bait and Women Without Men, which are actually listed as completely different films on lots of official sources because they are so greatly different. So it's kind of like a double bill, this. So go on then, Ben, what makes these different films for you?
Well, they're completely different tonally because of where your sympathies lie with the characters. So in the American version, as you said, she's being used as a patsy or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So she's gone to prison for this guy and she didn't know that the guy she's fallen in love with was a bad guy. So there are larger or smaller wheels within wheels, and the government agents from the US, the FBI, use her. They say, fake an exit, use her to find this guy so we can find him because we don't know where he is, but we know he's going to be here at this time to meet her. So let's see that. So she's being used, but also she knows that the guy that she's in love with is probably not very nice. She says that out loud, that she suspects that he's in prison, she suspects that he's on the run, she suspects that he's probably not a very nice person. We know this, and we've also seen him as the audience member, and we think this as well, even before we're told that or have it confirmed that he's not very nice. So I kind of don't have a great deal of sympathy with her being used, because she's going to break out. At best she's naive. At worst, she's kind of aiding and abetting somebody exactly that we don't really like. So when it turns out that she gets used and the guy gets shot in a scene that honestly could be straight from Police Squad, as they cower behind bushes and shoot at each other 2-4 way.
Oh, that set they've used as well is awful.
It's talk about Ed Wood. It's
a potted plant.
It's pretty bad. You can honestly see where it's been spliced in on the other footage as well.
It's awful.
So I don't have a massive amount of sympathy with it. Yet, whereas in the British version, all she does is fall in love with a guy. She's being, sort of abused by another man that she whacks over the head. I mean, that scene is in both films, but you have a lot more sympathy with her in the UK version for wanting to escape this horrible relationship that she's in. I mean, you have sympathy in both versions for her. In that particular instance, don't get me wrong. Yes. I'm not defending the aggressor. But when she's whacked him and ends up in prison, because the film starts with her in prison, your sympathies are with her immediately. Now, this film is more about, she's again naive and she's in love, but she's in love with a good guy, and we know that he's a good guy, and we kind of accept it because bizarrely he goes on mysterious fishing trips. If she doesn't see him on the first of on the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, very Ghostbusters 2, she might never see him again. So again, it's admittedly her reasons for breaking out of prison are a lot flimsier. Without that kind of element of let's break her out because she's part of something more important. I honestly don't buy but if I don't meet him, I might never see him again. It's like, you don't even know what he does. He hasn't told you that he's a magic fisherman or whatever he is. So, I didn't buy that, but my sympathy is much more with her. So the long-winded, sorry, Kevin, I've gone on for ages.
That's fine.
Answer to your question is that, tonally and sympathetically, it's a very, very different film. Yet, ironically, the character is seen doing the same things in both films 85% of the time. It's just how you feel about that character and what she does.
It's interesting how it changes the tone as well, yeah.
I've got a very basic way of putting it, but I will caveat it straight away with an apology to our American cousins and listeners in saying, I know this is going to sound really silly, but the US version is more American. So you have this helper American spy helping the Brits. He's cool. He's very charming to the women that he meets who come in the office, and he's drinking their coffee. And then, of course, it ends in a gunfight, which it doesn't need to end in a gunfight. And also, let's not beat around the bush here, it's the worst gunfight ever.
It's great.
So, there's only one gun.
Because it's terrible. Because it's absolutely terrible.
Because it's terrible. Right. We saw one in, what was it? Was it 5 days? Was it when they were...
the one where he throws a gun at him.
The gunfight that's in like a garden with the pillars.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
I can't remember which film it was. We've seen so many crap. So
where he shoots him in the back.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember.
Yeah.
But this is I know, as I said, it sounds silly, but that's the fundamental difference. Is it's very American, and you have an American quote unquote to root for, whereas the UK version, as you say, your sympathies lies with Booth, and you want as you say, little flimsy to want to break out of prison for that reason, but it kind of makes more sense in the UK one of saying she has to make this date,
Yeah.
And so, but it does a little bit. So you have to. So you give her that buy, and then it's just seeing what kind of adventures her and Gran can get up to, which include, running sort of along a ditch and almost getting spotted, and then Gran explaining what a recce is in French, which I thought was really funny.
And using the French word to actually say
absolutely
what
fantastic.
it is.
And then you meet the horrible Grace, and then you meet the drunk guy with the fireworks, and it's just more of an adventure than it is in the American version. And that for me is why I think, I'm not being, anti-America, but I'm just saying the UK version is better.
Yeah. bizarrely, I can agree with you completely with that, because for me, it's a different film because there's so much more focus on the harshness of prison life with the women for the first, I would say, the good first 2/3 of the film are pretty much that. And it does really make out that it's hell there. And I would also put a caveat in as far as Angie desperate to actually escape prison so that she can make this meeting, because don't forget, this is going back to a time when people did keep their appointments. We didn't have mobile phones. We just turned up. Yeah. It was simple. We just made it there. I mean, at the end of this film, Paul has been out deep sea diving for God knows how long and still manages to get back and meet her at a magic phone box. So it doesn't matter.
He's late, though.
You know, yeah, well, I mean, she only had a few miles to do. He had
he can't come up too soon, or he'll get the bends.
He'll get the bends, yeah. Here's Paul, he's looking a bit wonky.
I'm here.
But the fact that you've got that first 2/3 that focus completely on women. I mean, you've got some outrageous scenes. You've got the scene where a woman is set on fire in the kitchen.
That was cool.
And the arm injury seems to heal very quickly. We'll not talk about that. That's another weird plot line that goes nowhere.
True.
But yeah, that was cool. But then you get the last third where they go out with Lindbergh. Fantastic. The most comical car chase, but it suddenly becomes such a relief because you feel like they've been out on the lam and they've escaped by barge, and suddenly it's a whole different thing. And yet the American one spoils it completely, because halfway through the car chase, it suddenly cuts in with those two idiots just sat around an office drinking whiskey, talking again. And it's just how to kill the momentum straight away.
I love the phone call they get. What? There's a car? They're letting off fireworks? What? That was brilliant. But I just have to address something, was that Ben was shaking his head quite vigorously.
Go on, Ben.
The fireworks car scene does not belong in either cut of this film. It is awful. It is so tonally bizarre and ludicrous in comparison to what has been played straight the whole way through. And then you get this absolutely absurd scene with the drunken man lobbing fireworks at policemen.
Like Terry Thomas just lobbing.
It's just absurd, and it leaves you as an audience member. You don't know how to feel about it. You're just sitting there aghast, thinking, "What have I just watched?" And more importantly, why have I just watched it?
As a health and safety inspector, you're watching that and going, "Oh my God, what are they doing? They're just shooting fireworks at people. This is insane."
Yeah, but I've got to say, is that to calm him down when they sing Old Lang Syne, I thought that was brilliant.
At that exact point in my notes, I've written, WTF is going on and why are they singing? You know, and I stand by those comments.
What else are you supposed to do when you're being chased by the police on New Year's Eve?
Well, yeah, and
you've got Bill Shine in your boot. You might as well. I mean, let's face it. The last time we saw Bill Shine, he was playing Little Willie, the Chinless Wonder, with the massive tash in Never Look Back. He was at the dance at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
The Iron Horse dance.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're going to remember that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My Tash hero.
I know that's your dream.
It's just it's another Hammer film, though, where we get like 4 minutes of pointless firework card racing, but then we have to pack the actual, crescendo and meaningful ending to the film into like 17 seconds at the end because we've got no film left, apparently. It's stupid, is what it is.
Well, I mean, the UK version, the ending, I looked and I thought, well, this must be right near the end. And I looked and there was about 40 seconds to go. And I was like, hang on, we haven't met Paul Carpenter yet.
Yeah, Paul Carpenter hasn't turned up yet.
Suddenly appears. And then in the US version, it's like, oh, he's dead. I was like, oh, can we have a hug? End. It was like, what the hell? It's so quick.
Yeah. At the end in the UK version, it's hilarious because she just basically turns up at a pub and goes, oh, it's shut. Tries the door, it's still shut. Goes back to the telephone box, starts to dob herself into the police, and then Paul turns up, Paul Carpenter, and it's like, oh, fine, let's go to the telephone box then for some telephone box love.
So something I meant to check before we recorded, and I meant it, is that, do you remember that scene in The House Across the Lake when he comes back to look for the bird, and the house is all boarded up and there's been a building company in it? Mm-hmm. Is it the same firm that was on the door? As in this, when she gets to the pub and it's all closed up. It just rang a bell. And I'm wondering if this, again, is part of the HCU. It'd be very interesting to find out if there's a link there, because it just rang a bell. I could be completely wrong, but I just think it's worth looking at some point.
I'm just pausing the proceedings here for a second, just to let you know that Smokey is absolutely 100% correct. The company of Giddy and Giddy are indeed on the poster in the front of Down Place in the house across the lake, as well as on display outside the Oxhead Inn in Women Without Men or Blonde Bait.
I think there is a line at the end as well, which kind of underscores a little bit of the pointlessness about the whole procedure, where she says to Paul Carpenter in the UK version, I've been in prison, and he says, I know. And that's when the film ends, and it's like, oh, okay. If you'd written back, she wouldn't have escaped, and this whole film could have been saved.
Oh, do you know what? That scene, though, in the prison is really harsh. You know, everyone's getting their letters from friends and loved ones, and her name isn't getting read out. I really felt bad for her.
The thing is, she should have known by the time it got to S that her name wasn't going to get called out, because it was getting called out alphabetically, and the name's Booth.
Yeah.
No
once
chance.
They got to C, you're not getting anything.
Yeah, game over. Just move on.
What were they doing at C again? Were they looking for Nazi gold?
Hey! Yeah, it was the other Nick's Nazi gold.
Yeah.
Imagine if he turned up on a different boat. Hey, want to buy some nylons?
Speaking of nylons, right?
Oh, no.
Now, Cleo has some nylons, right? When they've escaped, Cleo, who we've not talked about really, she's the incredible relationship guru, as far as I can tell. She's got two husbands. One's English, one's French. Both living in the same house. Both hate each other. Both want to kill each other. That's fine. One of them's Gordon Jackson for a start off, so yeah, I mean, you could see why she'd want to get married to him. The other one's a crazy Frenchman, and he's hilarious.
No,
so I'd definitely get married to him as well. So yeah,
No.
Oh, they're great.
No.
Honestly, there'd never be a dull moment. It'd be brilliant.
I'm not playing this game.
They're the original Odd Couple.
I'm not doing it.
Yes, it is the original Odd Couple. See, again, Hammer, years ahead of their time.
I'm not playing this. Pierre is dreadful. He is horrible.
No,
and he's a terrible character. He's the most annoying character we've encountered in 51 films. And the fact that what I love is that regardless of which husband of hers is sat in front of her, she is flirting with the prison guard who stood behind them.
Yeah, because it's David Lodge. So you're gonna anyway, aren't you?
There you go.
with his twitching moustache.
It's brilliant, that.
It's hot.
That's good tash action there.
Oh. Kev appreciates those.
But anyway, back to Cleo's nylons. She sorts out a wardrobe for Angie, who's on the run, because obviously she's still dressed as a prison officer, isn't she?
Guard.
She's prison guard, yeah. And she actually manages to sort out a whole wardrobe for Angie, and I'm thinking, Angie is 5'9". Cleo is clearly 5'2".
5'5".
Nowhere near her height. How does this happen all the time in films? So many times you see people of different sizes swap clothes, and they somehow weirdly fit perfectly. So I just wondered if you've got any more examples of this that aren't Ghostbusters 2.
Doesn't happen in Ghostbusters 2. If you'd watched Ghostbusters 2, you'd know that.
Yeah, if you studied the intricacies of that modern classic.
I have, but I end up weeping halfway through.
Yeah, well, that's because it's emotional. That's what the River of Slime does to you.
Kev, I have some examples if you would like to move on at this point.
Please open the floodgates.
Right. James Bond does it all the time. I think there's like half a dozen films where he knocks somebody out and wears their jumpsuit. But I suppose you can explain that away. It's parodied really nicely in Austin Powers and in Shrek 2, where they get close. In Shrek 2, they get clothes that are far too small, and he wanders around like this.
Yes.
And in Austin Powers, they knock out people who are clearly completely the wrong size, but the clothes fit really nicely. Who else does it? Indiana Jones does it, or at least in 2 films, I think. The Terminator is the one that everyone remembers.
Sure.
But at least he sort of looks them up and down with his computer vision
Size
to work
guide.
out if it's going to. The one that always irritates me slightly is the Wizard of Oz, because they knock out the witch's guards, and even the lion gets a costume to fit. And you think this is ludicrous. And also, the end of Jingle All the Way, that he ends up in the Turbo Man outfit, but the postman or wherever he is ends up in the villain's outfit, and they fit perfectly. But, right, all of those aside, this leads me on to the larger point, which is, it's a related thing, Kev, but it's not quite what you were asking,
Okay.
but this is a window, and I'm going to take the opportunity, is, right, cliffhanger. That jumper, right, that's in the Museum of Jumpers, or wherever he gets it from,
When
right?
he breaks the glass to get it out.
He's in this. Why is there a jumper in a weird mountain museum, and it fits him perfectly? And also, what's it made of that's going to keep him alive up a mountain? All of it's stupid, and I don't want any answers because they'll all be wrong.
I did have an answer, but I'll keep it to myself.
Good.
Stamped addressed envelope.
When you asked us this question, Kev, the only one that really, really sprang to mind, because I always found it really funny, was in the episode of Blackadder, the third, and Rowan Atkinson and Hugh Laurie have to swap clothes. He has to pretend to be the prince. Hugh Laurie has to pretend to be the butler because Wellington's coming to kill the prince. And Hugh Laurie is, 6 foot, stupid, and very thin and lanky, and Rowan Atkinson isn't. and they swap clothes and they fit perfect. I always just looked at that and going, hang on, there's something not right there.
The only thing I can think of is the Stormtrooper. You're a little short for being a Stormtrooper, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, aren't they all clones? So then that wouldn't be able to fit at all, because obviously his shin pads would be rubbing up against his crotch.
He's not going to play football.
None of it's going to make any sense.
No.
Honestly, his arms and legs are going to be too short to actually fit through the end of the tubes. It just makes no sense.
Of all the issues that galaxy far, far away has, that's the least of their worries.
Your tube's not fitting. Yeah, well, I'm up there.
Sounds wrong, but yes.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that out of the way, because that was really troubling me. Cleo's nylons. Are there any particular favourite bits you thought were standouts? Because I've got one which is the US version, has the same miniature tape recorder that we'd seen in Third Party Risk.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the reel to reel that's the size of a desk. Yeah,
Yes.
very
Hidden.
Yeah, hidden surreptitiously. Yeah. So something I preferred more about the English version. Sorry to go on a broken record, but it is better.
Oh, there are 2 different films, so we can quite happily compare them.
Is the sense of humour that the British version has, and it's very cheeky in places. Is like one moment. They say, Marguerite's getting out soon, so she can take a message to Booth's fancy man, and Grant just goes, if he's in trousers, don't do it. And it's just like because she is that beautiful, it's just like, okay, leave her there. But then it's just also is the sort of the tender relationship between Booth and Gran as well, which is really sweet. When she tells the baby, "Oh, you have a really good granny here," and it was a really sweet and tender moment, and I liked that.
Although that was ruined a slight bit by the fact that both of them were smoking like chimneys with a child.
Oh yeah, they were smoking over the baby. Yeah. So I guess my answer to that is the emotional side is heavier. So whether it's
warmer.
Whether it's the comedy or the drama, it adds more to the film than it not being there.
Ben?
I enjoyed the musical number that they put into the English version.
Oh yes, which is completely missing.
Good. That's where the American one wins.
Sorry, I can't believe the question was addressed to me, wasn't it?
Well, I couldn't. He asked for positives. I didn't want to give a negative.
But what I would say...
You are a negative.
Is what I would say is that scene's quite vital because there is no grounding of her character in the British version at the beginning as an actual singer. Yeah, I think it asks quite a lot of the audience to know exactly who she is and why, that she has any sort of showbiz significance, because other than the producer guy who is obviously trying to abuse her, saying that she belongs to him, doesn't really express exactly in what context that means. So her getting the opportunity to sing and sort of perform, I think is quite important in that version. And I despite Captain Negative's opinion there, I enjoyed that scene. I thought it was quite sweet and it was quite funny.
Fair enough. I'll let you have that.
It does kind of work as well as part of the gang show kind of thing at the end. It makes the scene a lot more believable as far as them building up to this escape. They've got this whole Christmas performance kind of thing going on.
Variety show, isn't it, really?
Variety show, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a vaudeville type thing, isn't it? It's sort of, yeah.
A bit of everything.
Yeah, but I'm glad you mentioned that actually, Ben, because that just reminded me. Possibly, I'm not, as you know, I'm not a big fan of symbolism, but I have to give this film credit for what they did. The scene where Booth is being abused by that guy, and she obviously smashes the mirror over his head, and then the camera shows the mirror with her face in it, and because of the way the mirror's broken, it's the prison bars on her face. And again, I don't really like that kind of stuff. I thought it was so tastefully done and quite subtle that I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great shot as well. It was a fantastic shot of her face and the shock she has of just having committed this crime.
I think following on from that, one thing that is absent from the UK version that I would like to have seen is a little scene that explains why she went to prison. Because in the American version, there is a little because everyone's natural sort of thoughts are going to be, well, she was only defending herself from a man who was about to kill her or rape her or something, whatever he was about to do. Where they explain in the American version that basically he set his lawyers on her and she didn't have a chance because he was this big shot producer. Whereas a similar line, I think, in the UK version would have helped as well, because you are left kind of wondering why she's defended herself. How would not necessarily she would have absolutely certainly gone to prison. So, but again, the joy of seeing both versions is you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah, because thinking about it, if she'd gone to prison for murder, because obviously you never see the character again.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be 3 months.
No, exactly.
At that time, she'd be going to the gallows. Yeah, good point. It doesn't answer that.
That also does lead me to something that I found quite laughable, was that at one stage she's quite upset and depressed because she's in prison, so that makes sense. But she literally turns to one of her, cellmates and she goes, "I'm never getting out of here." And her mate goes, "You're not here that long.
You've only got 4 months left or something."
It's like, you are not in Shawshank. This isn't Alcatraz. You are getting out of here in a month. It was, I thought that was it was a great dramatic line. It'll sound great in the trailer, but it's like, that doesn't belong in the film.
But she means it in the same way we all mean it when we're like in Tesco on Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I thought it was a very odd line to have in the film.
I think we've just about cleared everything, haven't we? So,
just sum it up now.
Right. It's time to summary 2 films. So I'm going to ask you for 2 sets of scores here and any final thoughts, because it is 2 films at the end of the day that we've got here. So, Ben, do you want to go first?
I'll try. I mean, I think, to stress the point, they are different enough that they are 2 independent films. It's not just the same film cut differently. It's 2 separate films, really. I think there were elements of both that I liked, and I don't think that either of them is perfect without elements from the other version. I would like to have seen... I will say, I think the British version is better, but there are elements of the American version that I would like to have seen put in it. I would probably give the American version 5 and the British version perhaps a 6, a strong 6 though. I can't quite give it a 7, but a strong 6. I think if you'd taken the best elements of both and mashed them together, could have got an 8.
Yeah.
Easy.
So yeah, those are my kind of final thoughts. I've said enough about how I feel the two are tonally different. So yeah, that's how I would sum it up.
Okay. Smokey?
I don't really have too much more to add. As Ben says, we've been through this a lot. I think the best thing to come out of both versions of this is that it demanded a conversation because there is so much to contrast between the two. But I agree with Ben. I really think there is a supercut to be made of there's a Snyder cut to be made in the HCU, and to make a really cracking version of Women Without Men. Blonde Bait's a terrible title, forget that. And I remember texting you lads after I'd watched Blonde Bait and saying there's a good film in there. Yeah. And especially when you get to the end, you were like, oh, there were so many ways they could have gone. And then when we finally got to see Women Without Men, it was like, that's how it could have gone and should have gone. So
a simple romance.
One woman struggled to see the man she loves one last time.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's all right. It's a little corny, but it's simple, and sometimes the simplest stories work the best.
You've just fallen on it there. They should have made her terminally ill. That would have made it...
There you go.
I'm joking slightly, but I'm kind of not. No. A reason to escape would have been great.
So her sentence ends in a month. She's got 6 weeks to live. Boom! There's your story. So she gets out. She's as her bloke for 2 weeks, and then she pops her clothes. Great. But American one I'm going with Ben is actually no. The American one is a 4 for me because the ending is so unforgivably bad. Oh God, I just want to be John Wayne and as Kev said, next to a plant pot, and it's just like, oh God. But I enjoyed the British version a lot more. So, but 6 as well for me. I'm very close to Ben's rating on that. Both worth a watch just to see how this curious thing exists that we never knew about before.
True.
And also, you think about our timeline of Hammer, where we've just had, 2 really solid horror movies. And then we've got this, and then we're back into the horror again, and then we're out of the horror again. And so it was nice to have this little break from the horror before we get back into it again. So yeah, it was good to watch. Yeah. How about you, Kev?
I'm not as easygoing as you two by the looks of this.
In every sense.
As per usual. The US cut, I felt, was awful. The scenes that are cut in with 2 chaps just sat being Basil exposition all the way through are absolutely teeth-grindingly awful. You've got I can't even remember his character name, but it's the chap that's actually just come back from the UK. I can't even be bothered to look at his character name anymore. But he's just so awfully smug all the way through, and I think, oh God, I hate you so much. But it just doesn't work. And the fact that they keep throwing these scenes in at the most inopportune moments when the action is just about to get going, it's like the editor doesn't know anything. And I actually looked up what he'd done and went, oh, right, so his last piece of work was Cleopatra in 1963. Oh, okay. So
where he died.
Yeah, well, let's face it, Cleopatra would have killed you.
Coming at you.
So 3 for the 5 for the US one, but I would give it a 5 for the UK version. Definitely, it was
not too far apart.
It was a much more solid film. It was really entertaining towards the end, and it did show that Thora Hird could have the comedy chops to carry it.
She was
great. She was quite an enjoyable character all the way through. She doesn't change at all, even though the tone changes, as Ben said. She's a constant all the way through. She's cracking jokes when she's just come out of solitude, but she calls it solitude. She don't call it solitary, solitude. Yep. So again, the romance angle, which is dead in the US one. There's absolutely nothing between Angie and Nick. He calls in on her after 3 months. She's obviously not attracted to him, but because at one point she says, "You stay at that side of the screen." So there's obviously an awkwardness there. And then he just says, "I'm off for 3 months." And you think, well, no, but there's no chemistry between those two at all. And yet when you see her with Paul Carpenter's version of Nick, absolutely, you can believe that there's something there. Now, you can't have a romantic film where there's no romance between your leads. It's terrible.
It's the smell of the ocean in his hair.
He knew he was going to the Titanic, and that's all he was focusing on.
So there you go. Now, as you'll have deduced, a crucial plot point in both movies is a daring prison escape. Some might argue that allowing prisoners to dress as guards for their Christmas play and thus aid their escape might not have been the wisest bit of inmate management. And on that note, here's Smokey to talk about some more prison breakouts.
Women Without Men features something of an elaborate prison escape. This, of course, is not the first time we've encountered one of these with Hammer. Who could forget, all the way back in episode 5, In the Dark Road, when uber-criminal and uber-crap actor Stanley Thurston escaped from his cell with a very inventive homemade key. Thankfully, not only does Women Without Men feature better acting, but also a slightly more convincing escape plan too. Fleeing from the clink is nothing new in cinema though, and I'm sure you all have your favourites. Whether it's Andy Dufresne crawling through a sewer, Steve McQueen on a motorcycle, or Christopher Lambert fleeing from the eponymous fortress. That one's there for a certain Mr. Taylorson. Regardless of what your favourite is, it really is a handy cinematic device. The thing is though, when we covered The Dark Road, I covered prison movies, whilst also doing a very fine Alan Freeman impression, I hasten to add. So that's a topic I don't really want to go back to. But there's nothing stopping me covering real-life prison escapes, is there? Before we go on though, I would just like to make clear that I am in no way glamorizing the individuals that perpetrated such feats. They were or are in prison for a reason, some for multiple reasons, and most for utterly reprehensible reasons. This is just a quick look at some of the ingenuity used, okay? So you can stop writing that email now. We start off with Richard Lee McNair, who earned 2 life sentences and a 30-year burglary charge, and ended up in a maximum security facility. In April of 2006, McNair built himself a makeshift compartment fitted with a breathing tube that fitted snugly amongst the mail bags that were leaving the prison in Louisiana. Transported to a warehouse via forklift, it soon became clear that the space he had made was so small that he nearly passed out through the heat. Managing to finally get running when the warehouse staff were on a break, he was able to remain at large until he was arrested the following year when he was caught driving a stolen car. Next we have John Dillinger. Now, there's a name we all know, don't we? Personally, I can't hear his name without thinking of that line from High Fidelity. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to look it up. In March of 1934, Dillinger was awaiting trial for murder and was due to be sent to a quote-unquote escape-proof Nick. Instead of resting on his laurels, he whittled a wooden gun, fooling his guards enough that they let him out of his cell. Stealing guns and cars, Dillinger went on the run for several months, before meeting his demise in a hail of gunfire. We go now to the truly incredible story of Michel Vajour. Imprisoned inside the formidable Prison de l'Essonne in Paris, facing a possible 18 years for robbery and attempted murder, Michel had been plotting his escape before he even got there. Convincing his wife Nadine to take helicopter lessons, Vajour's idea was relatively lateral. All he needed to do was to get his chopper Flying Misses to land near the prison and whisk him away. The only space big enough for said landing happened to be the prison roof. But how do you get away without prison guards shooting at you? Well, how about if you have armfuls of grenades at your disposal? Great! But what if you don't have any grenades? Easy. You just steal some nectarines from the prison cafeteria and paint them green. Yes, really. After being rearrested several months later, Michel Vajour was released from prison in 2003. And finally, for a group of podcasters who can never remember what time they're due to record, this one really is extraordinary. In January of 1995, Messrs. Rogers, Rose and Williams, all imprisoned in the same lockup in the UK, collectively memorised the outline of the guard's master key. Luckily, all three worked in the prison's sheet metal shop and were able to produce an exact replica that essentially allowed them to open any door during their escape. The addition of a 25-foot steel ladder and a homemade gun also helped their plight. Their escape only lasted 4 days, and they were subsequently caught while trying to figure out a way to steal a plane. As I say, not nice people, but credit where it's due. Some clever stuff there. Sadly, if this ever happens to me, I'll think I'll just have to quietly do my time. I can't stand nectarines.
Thanks, Smokes, and once again, we're almost done. But before we disappear for another fortnight, just a quick reminder to give us a rating on your podcatcher of choice. If you enjoy what we do, it's a nice way to share the love. Similarly, you can follow us on the socials, on X, or whatever the hell it's called now, on Instagram, and on Facebook. In fact, why not just go to linktree.com/househammerpod, where you'll see all the places we lurk and all the things that we do there. Well, within reason. And remember, should you want more from us, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/househammerpod. For as little as £1 a month, you get extra perks and benefits, and for a little bit more, there's a bunch of extra content to charm your ear holes, including the ongoing series where we take a look at the Hammer House of Horror TV series, and a handshake from Hammer, where we take a look at the movies that have something in common with those discussed on this here main podcast. In the latest episode of that, Liz and myself compare 1958's The Blob to the rampaging Wibblies of the Quatermass Experiment and X the Unknown. But that's enough of that, and indeed that's enough of this. So until next time, it's goodbye from me, Ben Taylorson.
From me, Smokey.
And from me, Kev Moore.
And we'll see you again soon, where we welcome a very famous monster and some genuine Hammer royalty for the first time, as Mr. Cushing and Mr. Lee arrive at the door of our house. "No one who saw it lived to describe it," proclaims the poster. Let's just hope we live to talk about it, and you live to hear about it. Take care.